Hey everybody, it's Brandon. Today I'm going to be talking about drawing fan art while I draw some fan art. Making fan art is a controversial topic. There's so many angles to look at. There's the legal angle, the question of whether or not you're breaking the law when you do it. And then there's the moral implication of that law that you are stealing when you make fan art. On top of that, there are a ton of moral arguments as to why you should not make fan art. And to the other side, there are lots of moral arguments against copyright law that challenge the idea of owning ideas in the first place. You could write a book on the subject, and I'm sure probably Cory Doctorow has already done that. There's lots of legal commentary on it, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on that side. I just want to share my way of looking at fan art, what the perils are that I see, and what the potential benefits could be. If you followed me at all, you know that I do my fair share of fan art. And I still do fan art pretty regularly, so clearly I'm okay with the idea in general. To be clear, there are really two issues that need to be separated when making fan art. One, should you make fan art for self-promotion? And two, should you sell fan art? And they each have their own particular issues and opportunities, but I feel like they're very closely related, and my overall attitude about them is pretty similar. And my answer for both things is mostly a yes, but it does really depend on how you approach it and how you use it. Like I said, in general, I'm okay with the idea. I'm not really a big fan of the current state of copyright law right now. So the argument that it is illegal or some form of theft doesn't really sway me. Or at least it doesn't sway me morally. You may be right that legally it is illegal, but that being evidence for it being wrong really doesn't cut it with me. You look at who most of the beneficiaries of our current copyright regime are these days, and they're mostly these large firms that use intellectual property and kind of extract it like it's some sort of mineral, like they're mining it out of a mountain. And when you're making fan art, the chances are that you're probably actually going to be helping them by just kind of reinforcing these intellectual properties in the minds of people, and you're just giving them lots of free promotion. And if you look at it, you look at all these conventions, all these people selling fan art, the fact that it's really not really enforced. You don't have people chasing down every person at a convention and shutting them down for creating fan art kind of tells you that they understand that they know that it's kind of to their benefit to get all this free promotion. And personally, from my point of view, I would be thrilled if lots of people started creating fan art of my characters. I mean, it could only benefit me. Right now, if you do like any type of search for fan art of the characters I've created, I mean, there's maybe been like 3 people that have made fan art of of characters that I've invented. And if you also think about copyright, like copyright was originally created to protect the little guy. And so to the extent that you are creating fan art and that somehow hurts a struggling creator, then yeah, I would object to it. But I'm hard-pressed to really see any cases where that's happening in the real world. Most cases of struggling creators being screwed over for their creations has to do with, disputes with the firms that they worked for that aren't really, compensating them for how they've contributed. I mean, maybe I'm missing something. If you have a good example, please share it. I could be missing something. As far as creating fan art as a means of self-promotion, for me, it's an unambiguous yes, with one caveat, and maybe that makes it a little less unambiguous. Maybe you're making fan art out of pure love, and that's totally cool, but for most of us, we are going to do it out of love and because we want people to know about our work. So the one caveat is that you have to inject something of yourself into the art. If your work is still not very good and you haven't yet really established your own voice, you may get a response to your work, but chances are it's not going to convert over to new fans for you. You might just be feeding their fandom without really selling them on you as a creator. One example of someone doing it right that I absolutely love is a series of pieces done by my good friend Jerzy Drozd, where he went and did a redesign of all the Masters of the Universe characters, and then he did this amazing print with all of them on it, of like all the Masters of the Universe characters facing off. And it's not just fanboy service. You're essentially seeing what Jerzy sees in Masters of the Universe. It's his vision of the world and the characters. Man, I really wish he would sell this thing as a print. I think he could do well with it. But it's one of the most brilliant things he's done, and this is from a guy that's done lots of brilliant things. But the main point is that he is not just doing fan art for attention. He's using it as a vehicle to show off what he can do, and even better, to show what he's about. And clearly, he has a great love for this property, so it is about love as well, which really helps to sell it, because that tells you who he is. And I hate to use the term brand, but it fits his brand. It's a really fantastic way of kind of communicating his brand. And I'll add that from personal experience, fan art has been a super effective way for me to introduce new people to my work. It's important enough for me in my self-promotion that I try to make it a regular part of what I do. One other way to think about it is it's like this artistic handshake. It's an introduction. My job is to sell art, and in order to sell my art, I need people to see it. And I have found that I can get a pretty good response to my work as long as I can get it in front of people. And so fan art is a way to do that. You know, there's an essential principle here that whatever you create, you have to create something that connects with people. And I found that there's one really powerful formula to do that, and that is that A, you are creating something that people are familiar with. So it's some sort of, property that people already know about, that they already love. But the really essential part is that you have to give it a twist. So this kind of mix of seeing something they're familiar with, but seeing something about it that they are unfamiliar with, that's kind of new, that's kind of intriguing. I mean, that's what drives the curiosity. That's what makes them want to engage with your work. And that's also what demonstrates your voice and what you can do and what you're about. So yeah, make fan art, but make it yours and then post it for everyone to see. When it comes to selling fan art, things get a little bit more perilous. Well, I think the same risks exist with self-promotional art, but it seems like it's a little bit more of a danger when money is involved. I don't know why that is. Maybe that's because the incentives kind of push that danger a little bit more. But one thing that can happen when you start having some success selling fan art is it can get easy to get caught in the mindset of trying to figure out how you can capitalize on that angle, how you can kind of maximize your profits in that angle. And the result is what you end up seeing in all too many comic conventions, which is an artist alley that basically becomes fan poster alley, where it's just like columns, just like rows of posters of fan art. And that's not what I want to see happen. I want to see more artists getting their work seen for being their work. And I know there are a lot of people that are going to argue that selling fan art is a way of selling out. And I want to make clear that that's not the argument I'm making. Or at the very least, it's not black and white. Like there's an extreme where it's like definitely, yeah, you're compromising yourself, but there's a lot of room in the middle that I think is more legit. There is a point at which perhaps according to your own values, you have compromised yourself in order to make a buck. But I also think that is like a really personal, individual place. And so it's really hard for someone outside to, identify someone that is making that type of compromise. Frankly, we all have to be clear that making art for many of us is a job as well as a passion. You don't want to compromise the passion, but you also don't want to show disrespect for going out and making an honest day's living. And that's what we're talking about here. For many artists, just to be able to make a living making art is enough. They don't have to have some big, audacious artistic mission beyond that. Many artists will fall somewhere between the two extremes. They pay the bills with one thing, and then they have a little passion project on the side, or perhaps they are able to do most of their own work, but then they do a little bit of freelance as well. And really, the extreme of just making art for art's sake can kind of be perilous too. There's something really grounding about feedback, or being responsible to others with what you make. And maybe there's other ways than a market transaction to do that, but a market transaction can be a healthy, honest way to do that. So a little bit of a digression, but anyway, my experience is that the whole reason I started doing conventions was to promote my first Green Monk comic. And fortunately, it's always been a pretty good seller, so it never faded too far away from focus in the booth. But little by little, what happened to me is I started seeing this or that print that references some sort of pop culture or something was doing well, and asking, okay, what else can I do? How else can I build on this? And I found myself little by little, spending less time making comics and, spending more time making Garfield prints. Even though I actually have never made Garfield prints, but, now that I think of that, that could be kind of cool. So, I don't know. Any votes for Garfield? If I get enough comments on it, I will at the very least do some Garfield fan art. Or if there are any Rick and Morty fans out there, maybe it can be Gazorp filled. So you decide. Leave your vote in the comments, Garfield or Gazorp filled, and I'll do something with that. But I've fallen in the trap before of seeing how well I could do at a convention and really wanting to focus on refining my convention game, and it suddenly becomes this whole other obsession. Other than making art, is like, how can I get good at doing conventions? How can I get the best booth setup? How can I get the best mixture of different price points? What are the different pieces of fan art that I want to use? And you're figuring out how to mix and combine all these things, and just spending a ton of time doing that. And it becomes a big distraction. It's been a big distraction for me. And I found myself after one show just saying like, okay, I need to make sure that my focus is always on my work. It needs to be on, my comics first and foremost. And I still will bring fan art, but I just have to put it in its proper priority. So I just bring the stuff that I know is going to do well. I don't test out lots of different things. And I just kind of think of fan art now as the thing that I use to fund the costs of doing the convention. So it's really the same idea, whether I'm using fan art for self-promotion or selling. I try to remember what my end goal is, and to use fan art to carry out that end goal. And that could be paying the bills for a convention. That could be getting my name out there. But, I have to remember, I have to keep it as a tool. And I don't think, just to reiterate, I don't think there's anything wrong with using fan art to get your voice out there. At the end of the day, fan art just means old ideas. And from the beginning of time, people have been remixing and reusing old ideas to tell new stories. I mean, you look at the way that Disney was built. Disney was built on telling old stories in a new way. And it sounds funny to say that now because you look back at old Disney movies and they seem old. But the time they were made, animation was this new, insane, mind-blowing technology. And so they were really giving a new voice to an old story. And creating fan art is no different. It's about using these old stories But giving a voice to it, is an essential part of it. If you're just rehashing, if you're just doing the same stuff that's been done, it's going to be empty and it's not going to serve your purposes. So think about the things that you love. Think about the things you could say about them that could be different, that could be interesting, that could be unique. Be discriminate about this. Don't just kind of barf out anything that seems popular. Really focus on the stuff that you love, the stuff that you would like to take a stab at, and go out and make some really cool fan art. So those are some of my rambling thoughts on fan art. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. Please like this video. Please subscribe. And we'll talk to you next time.